Welcome everyone to today's event, How She Got There, Women in AI and Robotics, presented by SGInnovate and General Assembly and in support of SG Women in Tech. I am Sigrid from SGInnovate, and if you're new to us, we are a government-owned organization in Singapore with the mission to build deep tech innovations from Singapore for the world. We invest in and help build deep tech startups in the fields of AI, medtech, and quantum tech, just to name a few. We work with entrepreneurial scientists and clinicians to help bring their innovative research from lab to market, and we also develop tech talents and engage with a vibrant deep tech ecosystem. As part of the SG Women in Tech initiative, we hope this event will help raise awareness in diversity and inclusion, attract and develop more girls and women in tech, and help establish Singapore as a global leader in having an excellent environment of support for women in technology. Hence, today, we are very happy to end the year with a great panel of speakers, Sigrid, Angela, Grace, Sunita, Aisha, and our moderator, Divya, to share their stories and how they got to where they are now. So just some house rules. During the webinar, if you have any questions, please take the opportunity to post them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and do feel free to use the chat box to connect with our wider community. So before we begin, let me hand over the time to Seema from General Assembly to just say a few words, and we'll start the panel discussion proper. Seema, please.
Thanks, Ying. Welcome, everybody. We're so excited for today's event, and we're very honored to be partnering with SGInnovate. It's also one of our last events of the year, so we're really glad to be kicking it or ending it with such a fantastic panel. A little bit about General Assembly. We're a tech education company, so we focus on full-time and part-time courses, and those are in the fields of data science, software engineering, UX design, and digital marketing. We have shorter workshops, which are usually around 2.5 hours to half-day workshops, and those hone in on a specific skill set. And then we host a whole bunch of free events just like this one. So do check out our website if you're interested in learning anything more about any of our free events coming up, especially next year. We have a whole bunch, or any of the courses that we offer. And with that, I am very honored to pass the time over to Divya. She's one of our amazing data science instructors, and she's going to be moderating this fantastic panel. So thank you to everyone who joined us. I'm very excited to hear everyone's insights. And thank you all again for joining us at the end of the year. I know it's a busy time, but I think it's an important discussion. So we're excited to get started. Divya, off to you.
Thanks, Seema. Hi, everyone. Good morning from wherever you're tuning in today. So I'm Divya. I'm a lead data science instructor at General Assembly. I've been teaching with General Assembly over a year and a half. So today we have a stellar panel. And what's particularly exciting to me about this panel is people from very diverse background. So we have people from MNCs like Standard Chartered and Microsoft. We also have entrepreneurial folks. Who have set up their startups here in Singapore, and then we have people from academia. So let's get started so that we can hear from, so instead of me introducing the panelists, I would like the panelists to introduce themselves, what is the current role they play, and a little bit about their career trajectory in terms of how did they get to where they are today. Maybe we can start with Grace.
Oh, hi. Good morning. My name is Grace. So I'm the CEO of BX, where we build autonomous maritime systems to inspect underwater infrastructure and make insights about this infrastructure. So I actually got into this space as a mechanical engineering undergrad here at the National University of Singapore. I was pretty bored with my theoretical curriculum. I decided that I want to build something. And back in 2012, Singapore was actually very interested to have robotics engineers that learn how to build this kind of system so that we can protect our waters. So I then went on to a whole competitive track, competing in this kind of robotic systems around the world, in the US primarily. And then I joined a UK MNC that deals with marine sensor technology and worked by importing the technology here into APAC and understanding how they can solve problems, but realizing also in that process that localization of technology, especially for the underwater environment, is pretty important. That's why we started a company to produce this kind of technology here and localize it for shallow water applications. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Pretty exciting. Maybe we can hear from Aisha.
Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. I am CEO and co-founder of Addo AI. We are a consulting services firm that specializes in building very big data platforms and running machine learning models to meet kind of automation and optimization goals of companies. And we have some of the largest telcos, financial services, and healthcare companies as our clients. Thank you for having me here.
Perfect. So after the entrepreneurs, probably from Sunita.
Hi, everyone. Not an entrepreneur, but happy to be here anyway. I am the Data and AI Solutions Lead for Microsoft in Microsoft Asia, which covers quite a bit of the Southeast Asia as well as India, Japan, Greater China region, Australia. So it's, I think you'll hear more about the journey as we move along, but I've been in the data and AI space for a while. I come from a very unconventional background in physics. So that's my 2 cents right now, and we can come back to it later. Thanks, Divya.
Cool. Let's have Angela. So she's from another diverse academic background. So.
Good morning. I'm Wangbo Angela. I'm an assistant professor from Singapore University of Technology and Design. So my work is to facilitate AI capabilities on resource-constrained devices or platforms. So we could imagine that in the near future, probably our smartwatch or smartband can carry on AI model training, which is done by the which is done currently in the cloud or by the GPU clusters with days and nights work and with hundreds watts of power. So this is most exciting part of AI for me when I talk about this topic. And I'm getting to become the current position after a few years postdoc research. And some of my work has been featured by the Straits Times. And I feel that I love to do research. I love to do exploration, and I'm also love to pass my knowledge with younger generations. So I joined SUTD, and this is how I get here.
Thank you so much, Angela. So looks like a lot of your work goes into autonomous vehicles that Grace is probably producing. So yeah, let's hear from Sigrid.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me today. So I currently work for Untitled Chapter. I look after data science and data analytics for trade finance. So this is a role that covers 46 markets. I have been in Singapore for about 12 years. So I actually moved here during my PhD, and I did a PhD in statistics. And then I've always been working in the data world. So I've been working for different industries. I studied a bit in research, so I did a postdoc after my PhD. So I did some research, and then I moved into the industry world where I worked for FMCG, telco, and now finance. Before working for Standard Chartered, I was working for Singapore Exchange, and in Singapore Exchange, I was also looking after. I was leading the data science team there, so which I started from scratch, and I established the whole capability for the exchange. And now my current role is to establish and grow the analytics capability for trade finance for Standard Chartered. Is also a relatively new team, so we are basically building the team, setting up all the technology, the standards, and defining the different use cases. And my current role spans across anything that touches trade finance. So it can be risk, fraud, or customer analytics. And I'm really excited to be here today and to discuss with all these ladies.
All right, welcome. I see it's quite a eclectic panel, and all of us have a background in research as well. So with very varying career trajectory, I thought we'll start off by talking about a little bit about our mentors or influencers or even cheerleaders of ours, especially when we are trying to navigate through the dynamic career path. So probably I'll start with Angela. So who were your biggest mentors or influencers, and how did you get to meet them?
Yeah, sure. So actually there are two. One is my PhD advisor, and the other is my postdoc mentor. So first for my PhD advisor, I actually can see a pure enthusiasm out of him about the research, about the academia. This is also motivating me to follow the same career path after him. And so I think he's one of the most important influencers for me in my career. The other one is my postdoc mentor. She is very smart and very optimistic lady. And from her background and her experience, that I believe that a female can also do well in both of career and as well as the family life. So I think, yeah, this also inspires me. So I think these two people are the ones that make me here today.
Perfect. Probably we'll hear from Grace. So who are your mentors, or how do you reach out to your mentors or influencers?
It's very difficult to like have like the biggest, because I feel like everybody plays a role in creating this. But I would say for me, because I'm from the university itself, and I actually work with a lot of students, 100 undergrads to date. And I think the students really motivate me as well, because like every day I'm telling them to go and chase their dreams and all that. But if I'm not doing it myself, how do I continue to motivate them? Yeah, then the other person that actually helped me along in terms of my technology career side is my previous boss. It's my first boss in my first job, which I worked there for 5 years. Because as a fresh grad, I think I didn't know anything about work, and he guided me along and just gave me like a simple task, and encouraged me to go deep into a particular area instead of just going broad. And that really allowed me to build up my skill sets in technology and go create new things that people have not imagined before.
Perfect. Thank you. I feel a lot of these early experiences, the first job, and I have a mentor relationship with my PhD advisor as well. They are very special in the way that they act as sounding boards for us while we take these career changes. So having talked about a little bit of our mentors, I would like to ask about, from this point on, how would you have advised your younger self at the start of your career? Sunita, would you have done anything differently, or?
Yeah, I think the main thing is don't be afraid to step into something which is the unknown. I think that is the main thing. So as I was saying, my background is quite different. So I was doing a PhD in quantum physics. And then when I moved back to Singapore, it was, what do I start doing now in a whole different world for me? So at that point, I did a complete pivot in my career. I moved into consulting for several years. I was in consulting in the data and AI space. And then every time I get the question, you were doing physics, what are you doing here? Like, how are you here? And I'm like, it's very interesting, because a lot of people don't realize that theoretical physics or theoretical sciences in general have a lot of coding, programming, dealing with machine learning, AI, everything, but we didn't explicitly used to call it that, right? That was just data analysis back then. To make myself sound really old, but that's the case. And I think that now at this point, it's something that I look back at and I'm like, I wish I wasn't so afraid. I would have gotten here sooner. I mean, I have no regrets, right? But I think the main thing is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to reach out to your mentors as well, just on that previous point. A lot of times I feel like people are very hesitant to reach out to people they don't know, but they're inspired by them. But they have to realize that reaching out to those people actually like it and they want to be reached out to. So there shouldn't be anything stopping you from doing that. So go all out. There's nothing you have got to lose. Just reach out and make your base, make whatever dreams you have come true.
So totally resonates on, what are you doing in data science, right? I think data science has now become an umbrella term for everything. So I come from a signal processing background, which is fundamentally just data analysis, but people are like, hey, you didn't have a data science degree. So
yeah,
it's
apparently
only in the
the
last...
computer science degree is the only way to go about it, but everyone can step into this, and that's what makes AI really interesting, is because the diverse background, including like one of my mentors, she has a sociology background, right? So that adds a whole new perspective to the responsible AI aspects of AI as well. So there's nothing stopping anyone from moving into this.
That's so true. We can hear from Sigrid. What is the advice you would give your younger self from this point?
Okay, I guess don't be afraid is quite important, and I completely agree with you. But to me, it's more specifically like don't be afraid to ask questions. A lot of time when I was younger, I thought that asking questions would make me look ignorant, but actually it doesn't. It doesn't mean that you don't know anything or you are stupid. It just means that you are more interested in the conversation. So take question as like I'm trying to understand more the topic, or I'm trying to join the conversation, and use questions in a smarter way, in two ways. In one way of you are interested, you show that you're interested in the situation, and at the same time you can learn a bit more about some of the things you are not aware of. So I think it really helps you exchange ideas, build relationship, and definitely it's something that I didn't do enough when I was young. So ask questions is something that I would tell my younger self, and get mentors as well. I got mentors relatively late. And so I think, I mean, we discussed just briefly, but definitely have that sounding board and that external eye telling you how you're doing, or even forcing you to just stop and take a moment to think, because we are so busy with our BAU. Sometimes we don't take enough time to reflect on where we want to go, why we are doing the things that we are doing. So having that, just that person telling you, just stop and think about where you are right now, take that time for yourself and make sure that you're going in the right direction. So definitely those two things are very important, and I would definitely tell myself over and over again.
That's so true. I mean, with so much of busyness, we just want to keep moving. So we should just pause a little bit to figure where we want to go. So another sort of slightly different angle to the mentorship and advice, I feel that sometimes women tend to get a little too much of advice in some way. So maybe Aisha can tell us, was there a piece of advice that you thought was ridiculous, or a worse piece of advice that you received? And how did you, what was your experience around it?
Well, when I first came back to Asia after spending so much time in New York, I was very direct and honest and frank about things with my team on how things were going and how they could improve it. And then one senior member told me, you know, this is not the way we do things in Asia. We should be more ladylike. And it really threw me off, because I was like, really? Is it a cultural thing? Am I doing something wrong? And that was absolutely crap advice, because the truth is, at the end of the day, you know, what does that mean, be ladylike? Either you are professional and you know you are getting the job done and you're both inspiring and motivating your team, but you have to set things right. Or you are going to be shy and always under this old notion of a woman that she only talks in a certain way. That doesn't mean that one is not emotionally intelligent. That's different. But this word ladylike was so offensive to me. But even more shocking was that it destabilized me, because I never heard anybody referring to me like that. So I think we have to be very careful to not confuse emotional intelligence, which is important in managing teams, with this notion that you should be shy and demure and saying things in a very sweet way and be ladylike. So I think that was the worst advice I ever got.
Yes, I think all of us can resonate with it at some level with all the nods I see in the panel. So yeah, just stepping up a little bit on some of the challenges that women tend to face a little more in the technological world. So I thought I wanted to talk about slightly like two ends of the spectrum in some way. One is it's commonly when I talk to colleagues, female colleagues, and especially ones who have just started their journey into the tech world, is the imposter syndrome in their work. So perhaps, Grace, you can throw some idea, some experience of how you have dealt with it in the past, or how do you continue to overcome any doubts that you may have. I think all of us do have this at some degree. So maybe you can share your experience.
All the questions are very hard. Yeah, but I think what worked, or I try to do it most of the time, is thinking about the bigger vision of what we are trying to achieve. And yeah, like there was earlier advice about not being afraid, trying out new things. I think that's all stems from the fact that we want to change or make something better. And regardless of our individual capabilities, I think it's the collective ability of our teams that we build up together that can help us achieve the goals. So don't just we do not need to be too concerned about our own individual ability, I would say. Yeah, just for me, I also find a lot of people that can make up for my flaws, my weaknesses, to help me address those points as well. Yeah.
Perfect. So probably, Angela, you can give a response to it from an academic setting. How open are, because academia is still considered to be a little bit on the traditional side, and what are some of the efforts that are taken in academia to encourage female, both in the student population and as professors as well?
Sure. I actually see some challenging situations from a student's perspective, or from a female colleague perspective. So for a student perspective, we know that there are less female students in this community compared to male students. I think it is a little bit challenging because sometimes we feel that it's easier to interact or be understood by the same gender, and I think we can find more support with the same girlfriends or girl classmates compared to the boys, to the male. So the situation is that especially in the past, there are not so many women in the engineering, in the computer science, in AI field. But the good thing is that the things is changing now, because I see more and more female students get admit into these specialties and majors because of the bright future of AI, and also because that schools and universities are also promoting and to let more female students in, and they get they will award some like women in circuits field, or in some particular society. I think which are all the efforts that we can see right now. And from a female colleague's perspective, that I think that the most obstacle is that we need to develop our career, but at the same time we are also expected to take care of our family. So that's not easy to balance work and personal life and the family life. Is never an easy thing to do. So we need more understanding on that. And the good thing is that in Singapore we have a domestic helper which could alleviate some of these difficulties. I think this is good, and I think we also from my side, I think we also can improve our working efficiencies and to spend more time to play with our kids and with to interact with our families, and I think this is a good way to go.
Thank you. So I do see a lot of encouraging signs in terms of flexible work hours with more women getting into these high demanding jobs, right? Which traditionally, as Angela pointed out, women are previously were I remember even like a decade back, I had conversations of whether should we hire somebody because they just got married, right? So, so this is just certainly changing. But on that note, I have another kind of thought that keeps coming in some of these discussions where I meet friends around is, so there's a lot of work in the industry towards hiring more women. But sometimes this also tends to backfire a little bit as the colleagues see it as a diversity hire. So Aisha, do you have any advice for anyone who is probably passively bullied or picked around by this term of diversity hire?
Yeah, and I think that's such a good question, and it's very common. Minorities face it all the time. Women in tech face it all the time. There's a belief married women, pregnant women face it, and I think there's a bias against, there's an ageism in tech as well. They also face it basically. So I think all of this kind of discrimination is you just have to have a thick skin to it. So if you're a young person and you're in it, you should have a thick skin and let your work speak for you. If you're in management, this should be not tolerated in the sense of this should be noticed by people in my company and groups. And we find that when women have a women only group, and that's when they'll tell me if somebody's saying something and it made them uncomfortable. And I always tell them, I think one thing they know with me, and I think with all of us here, is that we do not tolerate poor performance in the name of diversity. The people we have, we encourage them to upskill, to work hard together, to find those people, and then they pull their weight and they're really good. And so it's very important that they feel it inside from management that you were hired because you are as good as anybody on this floor. And if you feel like somebody's pointing out that you don't know this thing, here's a course, here's a website, put in the work, you can do it. I find that this whole idea of like we love women just because we want women, it throws people off. Young people, it throws them off. They lose the confidence. True confidence comes by leadership making you feel that you deserve it because you're as good as anybody and pushing them to keep learning. Because let's face it, women are as good as men. But confidence is an issue we have because there's a veil of like, not only from other people, but this diversity veil throws people off a little bit. I think it's important. We should advocate for it, but we should encourage people to work hard and reach their true potential.
Thank you. So sometimes I feel that I tend to get defensive, or so I feel if anybody wants to pitch in, what's a good way to stand up for a recent woman who got hired in a leadership role, or in a particular, especially when talks is towards, oh, okay, it's just because of diversity. So how do we stand up for, in some way, I feel that I need to explain to the other men who are talking about it.
You mean if you are hired or you've hired someone?
No, some other women get hired in a leadership role, which was supposed to be probably a natural progression for some other person. So they were brought in, especially from a newer organization, right?
So I think it's very important to know why you got that person. There's nothing to explain.
Right.
The only thing is that person is competent. She has these skills. She has this experience. In the interview, she showed this. She has leadership, just like you would for a man. So you would use the same defense. And of course, all of us are PhDs. Defense is the thing that we do best. So you logically defend your choice. And it's not an emotional thing at all. Now, if the men are going to be emotional about it, which they sometimes and often are, well, that's their problem, right? We don't need to get emotional about it.
Yeah, that's right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the obstacles Sunita. So what were some of the obstacles you faced while building your career, and what are some of the biggest wins that you consider?
Yeah, so obstacles, oh, so many. But I think one of the ones which I stated earlier, which was the relevance from physics to whatever I was doing in data science, the immediate relevance that people can't usually connect the dots very easily. So they usually went, oh, what are you doing in as a data scientist? And I'm like, well, this is something I know how to do, so this is what I'm doing. So to connect the dots, proving credibility again and again was very important for me to get doing. There was a time which I often share as a funny joke now, but it affected me quite a bit back then, which was one of the people that I worked with. He actually came by and it was a team of us, and I was a data scientist, but also the PM for the tech group. And so then he just came to me and he said, oh, you're the PM? I thought you were here to get coffee and tea. And I'm like, yeah. So it was like straight to the heart. And, you know, but it's something that you just sort of have to, over time, you start to really quickly recover from. But then people go, it's not fair. I'm like, no, it's not fair. But you just have to, again, it's the confidence that Aisha was talking about. You just have to bring it out and say, you know what? I don't care what you have to say about it. But, you know, I'm doing my job. I know what I'm doing. And eventually you'll see it too. And he did. He came back to me at the end of the end of the month of the project and said, I'm really sorry I said that to you. And I shouldn't have said it. And you've really proven this thing. And I'm like, yeah, please don't ever say that to another woman again, right? Because that's not really nice. I think that it has been a repeated challenge, just proving that, you know, you're a woman in tech, and the fact that you're a woman in, you know, data science role, data engineering role, usually those are male dominated roles, has been quite an interesting challenge for me. I come from an all women's college. So for me, it's never been the case that, you know, I needed to repeatedly prove myself. But ever since I got here, I was like, oh, you know, I'm looked at from a different lens. So I need to keep doing it. But you know what? It's if you know what you're doing and you're confident about it, just bring it out, and don't sell yourself short. I think that's the main thing. And I think that's another thing that when I look at girls these days, they tend to do, which is, you know, I don't quite fit that role, so I don't know if I can apply to it. You don't need to fit all the 100% of the criteria on there, right? Just apply for it and get to know the people who are interviewing and sell yourself to that for that role. And who knows, you may land it, right? And you're as good of a probability to get that role as anyone else. The second question was the biggest thing that I did accomplish. Will be where I am today. I wouldn't have thought that I would be where I am today. Honestly, my dream back then was to, you know, become a Nobel laureate and whatnot. I mean, I think we all have that at some point as PhDs. I think being able to quickly pivot and you know, resonate to changes has been the biggest thing I've taken away from where I am today. To be able to do that very quickly, to be able to do that confidently, to know that you don't need to know every time, every second where you're going in life, to deal with that uncertainty and be okay with it. I think those are the main things that I've learned.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, especially I think with the dynamic way in which the job market is changing. It's very, very important that we make use of all the think through, hey, what is that you want to do next, and continue to move towards what we want, right? Today's job market is not, yeah.
Yeah, those will be continuously changing, especially right now with so many things which are unpredictably happening. Take 2020, for example. You just have to quickly pivot and change the way that you think about things as well. And tech is changing, you are changing. I think it's very important that the biggest takeaway is to realize that the greatest thing that you can adjust to is the changes going on, and be okay with it.
Yeah, accept change is the only permanent thing, I guess. So maybe Sigrid, I wanted to ask you, especially as somebody in a leadership role, I'm sure a lot of female colleagues especially tend to have doubts on few things. Could be gender, or maybe there is a break in their career journey, or maybe fewer years of experience, right, in their resume. So what is the piece of advice that you have for them to tackle these issues?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the most significant barrier, and we talked about it over and over again, but definitely self-confidence. And you can't convince someone else if you don't believe in what you're saying. So definitely that's the first thing that you need to tackle. And people will tend to listen to people who look confident rather than people who don't, and they tend to believe them more, even though they have the same information. And as women, definitely, I believe that for the same qualification, we have to work harder because we have that lack of self-confidence. And so we really need to put all our chances on our side. And so I think there are a few things I'd say as advice. First of all, you always need to get a seat at the table. Try to be invited to important meetings. And when you do, always make sure that you are present. If it's a physical meeting, I always try to sit at the table. I've seen a lot of women who just pick a chair and sit at the back of the room, but that's not the best way to be seen and to be known as well. And don't hesitate to voice up and to join the conversation, ask questions, as I mentioned earlier. People can't really read your mind. They will understand what you say, obviously. Market your work as well, more than just yourself. Market your work. Make sure that your work is known in the company in general, that people appreciate your work, that people know what you are doing. Because, I mean, especially in AI, what's the point of building the coolest model if no one knows about it and no one actually uses it? So really making sure that you are out there and be seen in that sense. And another thing is think a bit more about yourself and don't be afraid to say no. No doesn't mean that you don't like the other person that you're working with. It can mean a bunch of different things. So sometimes we, as women, we tend to say yes because we think that we need people to have that buy-in by just accepting anything that comes our way, but it's actually not the truth. And I do feel that if you don't say no first time, it will just keep coming back to you. So definitely learn to do that as well. And always try to get feedback. There are so many different ways to get feedback. In a company that's not like StanChart, we have a way to do a 360 feedback where we can get feedback from all around. So then you can start knowing where are your blind spots, where you can improve and how you can grow as a leader or even as a data scientist in general. So there are a lot of those small tips that I've been learning along the way to at least be seen as more self-confident and get more responsibilities.
Thank you so much for sharing that. When I started teaching in GA, I thought being a subject matter expert is the only thing I needed. But I realized that doing this career, being part of somebody's mid-career transition, right? A lot of it is just building up confidence, especially with women who sort of come back after a break, trying to take my course to step back into the industry. So there's a lot, yeah.
Actually, there is one more thing that is also important, especially in a big company like StanChart, which is your network and who knows you and who knows what you are doing. So definitely you need to have that technical knowledge, but you need to be able to build a network and relationship with different people to be able also to strive in companies like StanChart, which is quite big and complex as well.
That's so true. I think to showcase the work that we have done, right? Be it if you're a beginner in LinkedIn and communities like that, and of course within an organization, get your work to reach the management. Sometimes we tend to underplay in some way to not nearly say that, hey, we have not done so much. I think the mindset change definitely helps. So I do have one question which is very related here. So maybe one of the panelists can pitch in. This is from Kristen. Her question is it too late for women in mid-careers to change track to these tech fields? So I think this is one of the voices that I tend to get often. And of course, some of them convince themselves and enroll in programs like GA. I want to say the answer is no, it's not too late. So I'm going to probably Sunita, do you want to pitch in?
Yeah, sure. I think we're all hesitant to answer because we'll be then called mid-age along with you as well. So we're all there, but we're all secretly hiding it. I think the main thing is no. I think we're all examples here, to be honest. We have basically, I've basically switched my career a few times already by now. So as I said, from physics to consulting was one switch that I did do. Granted, that was a bit early on in my life, and then my second switch was actually quite recently, right? With the switch from consulting to Microsoft. That's a huge switch, and people tend to think, oh, you were in tech, you're in the tech industry, so that's hardly a switch. It is, because you tend to have to, build your network. You tend to have to build your understanding of how the company works, how things are done within that company, within that tech field. I've also switched within consulting itself quite a few times. So from SAP to things like enterprise architecture, to things like tech strategy. Data science obviously was always in the background throughout the whole thing. Data engineering. It's not. I wouldn't say it's going to be a breeze. It's not a breeze, a stroll in the park. But then I think it's driven by your interest level, as well as continuously wanting to build your skills. So if you have those two in your mind at any point in time, I don't think anything is going to stop you from stepping into these fields. One of the things that I usually tell people when I hire them is, especially one of the people who have been in a particular career and then they want to switch careers. One of the things that you carry as an asset with you, apart from the tech side, if you have that, that's great. The other thing is the business or the management learnings that you've acquired over time. And I think that that's quite irreplaceable. That's been with you so long. You know how it works in a particular industry, or you know how it works in a particular field. I would bring that to the surface when you're talking to the new companies that you're interested in. I think with regard to tech skills, you can pick that up with General Assembly or any other things. I mean, you're not going to be a data scientist in 2 days, right? And no one expects you to be. But the fact that you're doing this and you're acquiring this on the side is a huge plus for any recruiting companies out there. So they see that, oh, you've got these intrinsic business skills. You know how, for example, if you've come in from a bank, you know how things like investment works. You know how things like credit works. You know how these things work. You know how the process is. So that's something which no one can take away from you. I would build on that and say that in addition to all those things, I want to move into a data science or an analytics kind of field. This is what I'm doing in the background to build up my skills in that, right? So I'm taking up this course with General Assembly. I'm doing this on the side. I'm taking up a Coursera certification. Build on those things, because when people see that you're really interested in this and you've already started progressing with it, that's when they really find you super attractive for that role. So no, definitely no is the answer to the question. We're all there. We've all been doing that. So if you have any other follow-up questions, we can help. I am sure General Assembly is also obviously here to help with any particular skills that you're trying to build.
Thank you. So let's shift gears a little bit, because I see a lot of those questions coming in as well. So let's talk about the future of AI and robotics. So what are some of the exciting use cases that each of us are excited about? So probably Grace, are there these use cases that you want to talk about? What are, especially as a startup, you're building sort of the future. So tell us a little bit about why somebody should be excited about AI and robotics.
Yeah, so my field is a fusion of both, because robots, in order to bring them to the next level, we need to have machine learning, artificial intelligence to help them, gain the kind of skills for them to do things. So one thing that excites me about robotics is the interaction between what we build and the physical world itself. It's a physical thing that can actually help to impact a lot of what we see on a day-to-day basis. So in particular, we my team, we always look at how the deployment of robots can help take people out of dangerous situations. I think these are important goals that robotics deployments need to think about. You know, how do we use this to actually help the people around us? That's one. So about like dangerous DAO, how to make it safer. Then the second aspect is living here in Singapore. I'm actually in some like community groups whereby they talk about like beach cleanups, plastic cleanup and all that. And I think the traditional way of using like manual labor to change our world to make it more sustainable might be very expensive and very difficult to achieve it. But robots and AI can help us achieve this kind of goals at a much faster and efficient way. So like thinking about sustainability, thinking about the things that matter to us, you know, because we only have one Earth, we only have one planet. How are we going to reverse the things that happened to the Earth over the past 100 or like thousands of years based on our industrialization? How can we use the new skills and new technology that we have today to slow down the damages or even reverse the damages that we have, you know, as a like many generations before us have like kind of contributed to. Yeah, so that's the two things.
All right, thank you. So there's one more question which I thought was very interesting, maybe to Angela. Do you think there is a generation gap in thinking in robotics and AI?
I actually think it is a very good question because I once had an interview with a few undergraduate students who is applying for exchange. And surprisingly, I find that some of them already have a startup company and to utilize AI technology for some programming problems and to create some novel applications for mobile phones. So I think they are very in terms of I mean the mindset and interest, they are more advanced to the current most state of the art AI technology and the topics. I kind of feel that I'm a little bit falling behind than them. So that's very interesting and very inspiring. And I think this is very good thing for the community. And I think the younger generations, they are more likely to use the novel ideas, the novel devices with the novel applications related to AI. So they will spend money on them, and also they will explore more opportunities from them and more proactively. And but as a slightly old generation compared to them, for me, I'm also still very open and also looking to any possibilities, any method to achieve my goal in my work. So no matter younger generation or slightly old generation, I think that the gap is not as big as maybe some people assume. And I think I see a very possible synergy between the two generations in the near future. Yeah, that's my opinion.
That's so true. I think one good thing is people are reading a lot, and so I keep getting questions in class as, hey, okay, will we learn to do this? Will we learn to do this cool thing, right? So it also pushes you to keep upgrading and at least find out how do you explain to them in the context of what they have learned and how they should be bridging their gap. So there is this another interesting question. So I thought maybe Aisha, you can take it. So what are some of the advantages in AI that you're excited about? And especially with a lot of AI talk comes ethics in AI, right? So what are your thoughts in ensuring that we're incorporating ethics in AI as we go through these advances, as we push boundaries?
I think that's a really important question, and I think it needs to be seriously thought of by everyone. So usually now I saw, for example, Cambridge University has a master's in AI and ethics. But when we're studying mathematics or physics or computer science, especially if they're software engineers, the old way of doing things was that you would get some requirements and the business people have already thought about both the business value and you hope they've thought about the ethics. So you're just like, making your model. But this world has changed. Now the techies are innovating the business model itself. Now it is our responsibility, whether the business thinks about it or not, to say, stop, this doesn't feel right to me. This doesn't look right to me. And there are, well-known processes, algorithms, and policies that you can follow to check for bias, fairness metrics, data governance. And Singapore has an artificial intelligence and ethics guidelines produced by the government to help companies with case studies think through these things. And we're going to be one of the first countries that's going to have a certification for product managers and technologists to take a certification in ethics as well. And I really think this should be compulsory because philosophy of technology is such an important thing. And it's so important for all of us to have agency. And I think all of us who are scientists or techies or mathematicians, we know it's such a creative, philosophical discipline and with so much experimentation and tinkering that we are fully capable of this critical thinking. So I think that the best way to do it is, first of all, acknowledge that all technology is a double-edged sword, is a yin and a yang. And after that, you've got to have a balanced approach. And for that, it's not going to come to you in an emotional manner. There's actually a systematic way. And there are other things that you can go and use, tools, thought processes, frameworks. And we should all learn this and make an effort to do it.
Yeah, I think there's a follow-up. Maybe Sigrid can add on to AI ethics in AI, especially from a financial point of view.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's something that we are looking at carefully. As you know, MES has come with guidelines around fairness, ethics, accountability, transparency. So as the DPM announced at the FinTech Festival last week, that we have a consortium of 17 companies in Singapore, this group called Veritas. We are looking at these guidelines and how from these very theoretical high-level guidelines we can implement them practically inside the bank. So this part of transition is a little bit more detailed and really more practical, because just having the rule is not enough. It's really how do you implement it on a day-to-day basis. So we are slowly moving into that direction, definitely. We have a working group within the bank as well that is looking at the different parts of these guidelines. So fairness, what does it mean? How do you apply it? And how do you make sure that your customers are protected as well? How do you make sure that, for example, if you give a credit rating or a credit decision for a customer, this is not going to change over time? How do you ensure that you don't, there is no bias in the decisions that you are making? So definitely something that is going in the right direction, and the regulator has a really big part to play in this field. So MES has been working very closely with all the different financial institutions to implement this. And I do believe that in other fields, the regulator also should come in place and help the companies to figure out what's the best way to go about it.
Thank you. I think Singapore, there's a lot of push towards AI, and certainly regulation is a big part, and it has to follow alongside technological development. I do have one interesting.
Sorry, I just want to add on that note that MES for financial services, yes, PDPC is also very involved in bringing in the governance framework, as well as the checklist, if you will, on some of the things that all companies across all industries can use to make sure that they are ethically sound when they implement AI technologies. It's not a mandate, but it's definitely heading in a good direction with all these guidelines and checklists and governance processes.
Thank you. So I had a follow-up question to Sunita, especially there are a few on the cultural aspect of digital transformation. I have one which says, I've learned about digital innovation through self-awareness model, which is quite different to the way it's perceived or taught in Singapore. I've realized that the biggest problem to solve is a cultural one of what, so what are your thoughts and how would you go about it?
That's a loaded question. Thanks for that. I think that any digital transformation, that's true. It's a huge amount of cultural transformation that needs to happen along with tech, right? When people say digital transformation, people say AI, they usually just think, what are the technologies you want to implement? What are the different, AI systems you want to implement, data systems you want to implement. But then I think it's extremely crucial to bring the people along in that journey very early on, even before you embark on this journey, to make sure that you have, number one, the buy-in and support from the leaders up at the top, to make sure that they understand the purpose of this journey, what you're trying to get out of it, and why it's very important for the organization. That's crucial, number one. The second point is to make sure that you're just not limiting it to the IT department. It's everyone, right? So everyone is involved, because when it comes to digital transformation, when it comes to AI, your business users are as important as your tech users, right? So even though the tech teams would be the one, the IT teams would be the one to probably manage the back end of the data and then the cloud and whatnot, your business users are going to be the one to use that data on a regular basis, whether it's reporting purposes, whether it's dashboards that you're putting out there, making sure it's self-reporting capabilities for everyone to be able to use and report on. And they're the ones who are closest to the line of business, right? So they are the ones who understand what's coming out of this data and how to present it back when it comes to any insights that they want to draw out of it. So it's very crucial to do all that. It's very important to develop an operating model to make sure that we understand, that the organization understands, who is responsible for what. There is a proper RACI that's built. So responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. Make sure that you know who's doing what, and who's responsible, accountable for what. So even with regard to data ownership, it's very important to understand the data governance around anything that you have in place. And that's going to lead to AI governance in the future. And as the previous point mentioned, it's very crucial to keep in mind that you have an AI ethics committee on board, to make sure that anything and everything that's developed in the AI space is constantly governed, is constantly adhering to either the FEED principles if you're in financial services institutions, or it's properly regulated and it's unbiased and fair and everything else, right? So I think all these things are important. It's, again, very early on, you need to get in the people, buy-in, get advocates, right? So get a pilot started with a few people. Let's get them to really understand what are the benefits of this. Get your advocates to talk to others and get that messaging out. So I think if you do it full scale the first time round, you're going to be completely lost. Maybe start small and make sure that those people are really comfortable, really positive about the change you're trying to make, and let them be the advocates for others.
Thank you. I feel there is this very interesting question, considering all panelists are in the STEM field. So what was the motivation that pushed all of us to pursue STEM field, whether a parent, a teacher, or interest in science and math, maybe involvement in a school club or activity? How do we push young girls to develop interest in computer science, math, science in general? So maybe each of us can take do a very quick thing of how did just think back and talk about what pushed us towards STEM. Maybe Sigrid, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. How did I get? So personally, I was always in the technology side, and I was always interested in math. I actually did an undergrad in biology. but I always really like math. And so one way to do it was to do the statistics part of it, because it's heavily used in biology. So that's how I ended up in the data field in general. And then technology was kind of a natural move from there on. How do you get more people interested in this field? I think that the company has to support women in general and has to show that there is a network of women that we can leverage. So in Standard Chartered, we do have a lot of ways to reach out to different female leaders and role models that we can talk to, that we can get advice from. So I think it's really building that network and building that platform for people to exchange and to learn from each other and to see that it's worked for a few other women as well, and from there grow. I won't take too much time because I know we are getting close to the end.
Yeah, so maybe a very quick comment on so what are some of Aisha, before you drop off, what do you how do you encourage people to get into AI or STEM background, especially young girls?
Yeah, so I have a charity called 21st Century Girls, and we teach AI to girls from polytechnics, and then we have collaborated with IMDA and Google to teach kids coding. And really, it's not at all about the coding, it's about the problems and the different ways they can solve that problem. That's how people get into it. Their parents think, oh wow, we should really push our kids into this, but the kids don't care. All they want to do is, oh, that's interesting, that's curious, and they just realize they run into the need for math, for coding, to solve that problem, and that is when they're motivated to learn. Basically, it's just a different way, especially if they're not naturally inclined or feel or lack the confidence. Another way to come to the same thing is to give them challenges and problems, and that makes it very interesting, especially for the teenage girls that who are coming in at a late thing. They just want to understand the basics so that they can be part of a team and communicate with the AI engineers and data scientists. And for them, it's all about a collaborative effort, what I call the 21st century team, right? You have the business people, you have the technical AI people, and then you have the machine itself. And we all need to work together to solve a problem. I think that kind of narrative helps more than the very technical, you have to learn this and this and this, basically. And thank you so much for having me here. Divya and everyone, guys, thank you. Bye.
Yes, I would like to just hear the final comments from Angela as well on what pushed you towards STEM. Just maybe a couple of more minutes, and then we'll pass it on to the organizers.
Because I'm a teacher, and from a teacher's perspective, I think I should tell my students that AI or robotics is not as difficult as you think, because we all know that people all know that AlphaGo beat one of the top human being brains, and they think that AI or artificial neural network can do anything, but it is not. Think about that. The AlphaGo consumes tens of thousands of power, but for a human being, the brain's power is around 20 watts. So it's not fair to compare in between. So we should be confident for ourselves, and not mention that it's just it's a game contest. But in fact, AlphaGo cannot do many things as what we can do right now. So we should be confident, and we should in ourselves, and we also should know that we have the idea that it is not difficult. It is what we totally could understand, because AlphaGo is actually divided by our human being. So by knowing that, I think we can encourage more people and more young girls to join this area. Yeah, thank you. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Grace, what pushed you towards STEM?
I joined competitions, so I really encourage people to just have like hands-on experience. Just go for camps or like something that interests you, and then follow up on your interests.
I think the fun element is important. Just do
Yeah.
something that you think is fun. And
That's right.
Sunita, what pushed you towards STEM?
Well, I think my love for physics and math when I started off has always been the case for me. But I think in AI, it's very important to understand that people who have specific goals in terms of solving for a particular crisis, whether it's healthcare, whether it's sustainable practices, I think that stems a lot of, for lack of a better word, stems a lot of people to go into AI and tech, right? And to understand that that can be possible solutions to help those issues right now that we're facing. So starting off with the issues and then going into how we can solve those problems. I think that leads you eventually to AI and robotics as well.
All right. Thank you so much. I had a lot of fun listening to all your stories and the exciting journey you've had. Thank you so much for being a great panel. Let me pass on my time to Ziying.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angela, Aisha, Grace, Sigrid, Sunita, and Divya for the great panel discussion, and of course, Divya for your moderation. And thank you to all our attendees for your time and the very good questions that came out in our Q&A box. It's a pity that we ran out of time, and hopefully this discussion can continue and grow offline. So we hope this webinar sparks more interest in the AI and robotics, and we hope you came away with more knowledge and insights, as well as inspirations to start your own tech journey. Do keep an eye out for a post-event email with the recording to the sessions and ways to connect with our speakers. So until we see each other again, perhaps next year, do take care and have a good end of the year holidays. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All
Bye-bye.
right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.